Hi, Radioheads. I'm Jenny Feldy here with awesome, intelligent, very interesting Renato Tranquilino. He's the author of the sci-fi novella Fate of a Distant Future. He's also in the film world. He also does many other things, but we're focusing on this sci-fi novella today. That's the topic. We're not going to get into film production. That could be 2 hours right there. So hi, hello. Thank you for being here from the Philippines.
Hi, Jen. Yes, great to be here. And yes, I'm in Manila right now. It's a little bit chilly because we've just had a typhoon come through.
A
So it's
typhoon.
it's not as hot as normal. So it's kind of nice actually. Yeah,
Okay,
even though
off
yeah.
topic question because I don't know about typhoons. I've never been in a typhoon. Could you tell this New Yorker DC girl what happens when a typhoon comes through?
Well, it can't, they're like different classifications. So this one is signal two, which is the effect is only signal two. So there's no houses being blown away or anything like that. So
Oh man, that's no
it's
fun.
but there are flooding and regions that have been hit hard, like
Okay.
with the typhoon. I mean, you could have fallen trees, fallen electrical poles, that
Okay.
sort of thing. So it can still be fairly dangerous. So you don't walk around going woo, like you don't
So
do that.
kind of smoothish segue. Your book, at least a summary of the book. It, it has to do with an earthquake that happened in the Philippines, not a
Ah,
typhoon, and there's
yeah.
worry of more disaster that could happen. So could you just give us a quick little synopsis of the book you wrote that we're going to talk about?
Sure. Basically, it's a novella, and it's composed of four stories. And so the four stories tell of kind of like a generation of generations of different characters and how they had to deal with situations in their particular era. And the book is basically about how the Philippines, which is like a perceived as a third world country and fairly poor, that sort of thing, how it got into the space race and space colonization. Um, Despite going through turmoils and betrayals and whatnot
Right.
during 4,000, 5,000 years,
Right.
from today, 3,000 from today. So, and that's how the story kind of unfolds. And as you read it, you see how the country kind of slowly evolves into that the spacefaring or the space
Mm-hmm.
colonizing planet country.
So before we get to the space part, one thing that stuck out for me. So the Philippines basically wanted to rent out, or as I colloquially am going to call it, Airbnb, a third of the country to the highest bidder.
Yeah,
And
I'm not going to be very
I've
popular
always
with
been
this one, right?
afraid. I'm afraid of renting out property or renting out a room.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, renting out a third of the country. What?
Yeah. Okay. So how that came about is basically there's the first story talks about we are like, if you look at the Philippines, it's on what they call the volcanic ring, the ring of fire. So there's
Mm-hmm.
lots of volcanoes, lots of undersea volcanoes, earthquakes. So we are prone to earthquakes, not as bad as Japan. However, there is a string of undersea volcanoes that can cause this fault line, like that
Okay.
goes through the big city of Metro Manila. And so that's they're waiting for that. I mean, sadly, they know that it's going to happen at some point.
Mm.
If that happens, then it's going to spell a great deal of disaster for the country. How big a disaster we're looking at? Well, let's see. How will it end up being in that situation where we had to rent out a third of the country? Well, in my in my supposition, in the way I wrote this book, it's based. So you have the earthquake, and then you have the pandemic, and then you got the financial collapse, which basically said that the country to the government of the country is like, we got to rent it out because we can't afford to fix the problem. Now,
Mm.
why is that? If you look at the pandemic right now, we just did our budget for the government for the country for 2022. and we have a shortfall of $50 billion, that means we don't know where we will get that $50 billion. It might be loan or whatever, um, but that we don't have that money. Okay,
Hey, could I have
they
like
look,
50
yeah.
billion just for lunch? So I have a little lunch money. Like,
Well, you'd think so, but for us, it's like a huge sum of money.
yeah, oh, for
So
anyone.
yeah. So imagine say that value of money, okay? And then so we fast forward. I mean, we're not gonna go into like how much that 50 billion would be worth in 3,000 years, but if you then add to that, so that's like the pandemic situation, okay, that
Mhm.
caused that 50 billion shortfall. If you do the earthquake
That's
and you've got
real? That's real?
that,
Like, or no, in the book.
no, no, that's real money
That's
that we're talking
real.
about, that's the shortfall. So yeah, right now that's a problem. Okay, so
Wow. Due to the real
that's what
pandemic that happens right now, not in your book, there's a 50
that that's
billion.
right. That's right. So
What? Wow.
the pandemic caused us a 50 billion shortfall in our budget, which we don't know where to get.
Oh
Okay,
my God.
so now, what I did is now I built it up into like, okay, what happens if you got a pandemic and then you've also got this massive earthquake that destroys 90% of Metro Manila,
Mhm.
which a similar something happened like that before where it crashed the tower and cracked a whole lot of buildings. If the damage is only worth $5 billion, we can be covered by the World Bank. Like we have
Mm.
insurance for that.
Okay.
But once you go over that, and Manila, as you know, it's like an international city. So if it
Mhm.
gets totally wrecked, you could be looking at like, it could be about $100 billion worth of damage.
It's only
So
covered for 5. So
exactly.
that
So
insurance plan needed to be upped a long time ago. They should have gotten the higher coverage plan from, the World Bank,
where
you
would they
know?
get the premium? Where would they get the
I
premium for
know.
that? So that's
I
the thing.
know. Yeah.
And that's why we're living on borrowed time for that particular um,
Wow. My
earthquake.
grandpa actually was in charge of allocating money, but to Latin America for things like this. That was his
Right.
job. So he would
The
he
good
would know
thing,
what to say to this.
yeah, the Latin American countries are not in that
Mhm.
particular situation where they're in the ring of fire. So we have a higher premium risk on in terms of insurance. So it's going to hit you in the pocket. Like if you want to insure for 100 billion to cover that sort of thing for the next 3 years or something, or even 20 years from now, it's still a big chunk of money to handle,
Yeah.
on a premium basis. So anyway, so
Mhm.
then all of a sudden you get hit with these two things, pandemic. Naturally, there's not going to be any business. People are going to be leaving the country, like businessmen and all that. So there's going to be an economic collapse as well, following that.
Mhm.
And so the only thing I could think of was that the government at the time would have to either nationalize all the resources um, to basically generate enough money, like as in gather everyone up and say, okay, we're now taking over. The government's going to take over everything, and it's going to export and all that sort of stuff just
Mhm.
to generate revenue, increase taxes, blah blah blah. Or they'll relocate the capital somewhere else and then
Right.
rent out the third of
Yeah,
the
I found
country.
that to be pretty interesting.
Well, it's happened, and I'm basing that particular scenario with what happened with Hong Kong. As you know, the Hong Kong was rented out to the Brits for 99 years. Now the situation is different because that was because of the Opium War. So basically, Britain was doing dope, or like they loved their dope at the time in the 1840s,
Who
and so
doesn't?
yeah, it's a good thing, right? So the
Mhm.
Chinese were going, well, wait a minute, boys. I mean, we're not really getting a cut of a decent deal here, so we're going to stop doing this. So what the Brits did was they lined up all their warships
Okay.
and started like pummeling like basically the coastline of China where the main cities were at the time. So they had to
Oh,
surrender.
wow.
I mean, that was British bullying at its best. And basically the Brits said, give us Hong Kong, give us reparations for this. And basically they looted like the country because of
Wow.
They made them give up their land as well as pay reparations. So anyway, so that was colonialism at its worst. But
Very
yeah,
interesting. In the Philippines, here, I'm just going to insert something because you said, as you know, and I did not know a lot of what you just said, but I did
ah,
know the Philippines got looted back. My great grandpa, Diego Suarez, who I never met, my
mhm,
dad's grandpa, he lived in the Philippines, and I heard that they got looted a long time ago. So what they did, I thought this was so interesting, and I wore the necklace the other day. They
mhm,
took their pearls and they put them in candles and they shipped them to America. So
yeah,
so they break open the candle. They had the pearls. So before my
yeah,
grandma died when she was sick, she took one of the pearls. We made a necklace. So I have this necklace with one of the pearls from the Philippines that during the looting they hid everything and they shipped it off.
yeah. That would have been like
Wow.
in the World War II, or towards the end of
Hmm.
World War II, because like
Yes.
as like the whole city was destroyed. It was leveled
Yeah.
because of the terrible fighting between the Japanese army and MacArthur's the U.S. army, U.S. Philippine army, sort of
And
thing.
did you have family in the Philippines at that time?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
my grandma was watching dogfights of Zeros versus the Mustangs.
Whoa.
We were watching it on the kitchen, and in fact, like she fell watching the dogfights as she was watching the dogfights, and had to
Dogfights?
get like a replacement. Yeah, like dogfights in the
Dogfights?
air, like no planes, like they were
Okay.
like it's
I'm
yeah.
like, that's you did not mean dogfights. Like
No, no,
dog
no,
like I'm like, he doesn't mean Michael Vick dogfights. I'm like,
no,
okay.
no, no,
You
no,
have to
no, no.
realize
Those
I'm a
types,
health
those,
person. I know lots and lots and lots about health and film and create. I do not know history very well at all. You know why?
oh,
Because history is not going to fix someone's gallbladder or their enzymes. So I just pay attention to what I need
that,
to. Like my dad is a dentist. He also
yeah.
was very similar. We do not know a lot about history. We focus on
He,
the now.
he will know when you mention to him dogfight like World War II. He
Yeah.
totally knows. If
Yeah.
you mention words like Zeros, Mustang,
Right.
dogfight,
Okay.
everyone knows that. Like so,
Okay.
there's no
Yeah, yeah. When you
confusion
say
with like
everyone, don't put me in there, okay?
no, 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 no. No, but anyone like past the age of maybe 40 or 30,
Okay.
30, 40,
Okay.
yeah. Like
Well,
no, I've passed the age of 50, I think, yeah. So
okay.
I'm
All right.
50.
So I made
So,
the
yeah,
cutoff,
yeah,
37.
yeah, yeah.
So let's
That's
go
right.
back to your book. So, okay, just quick note.
So
I'm
so
gonna come
that
out
was the
swinging. Uh-huh.
So that was
Well,
the first one, right? Like, why would you rent it out? Why
right,
affect the country? So
right,
it's basically that the total collapse of the economy,
right.
which followed the pandemic and the earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And
so
there's another theme of I was just gonna switch it to, do you think the US should colonize another planet? But
oh yeah,
it doesn't have to be the US, maybe the Philippines.
definitely. I mean, definitely, that America is already on its way to doing that.
Right.
And that's why you guys have got a space
But
force.
do you
I mean,
think we should? That's my question. I know what's
yeah,
going on, but do you think we
yeah.
should colonize another planet?
Definitely, because it's going to help a lot of Americans in terms of jobs, in terms
Uh-huh.
of energy
Wow.
generation, finance. There's going to be all this new stuff that's going to come in from other planets to be
Mhm.
processed. So factories. So without a question, without a doubt, I mean,
You know what
America.
I'm gonna do? I'm gonna
Must,
send my ex-wife to another planet. No,
sorry.
I call my ex-boyfriend affectionately my ex-wife because he has a lot
Uh,
of traits of like an ex-wife. So like, you can go to another country,
yeah.
another planet. Excuse me, another
I
planet.
mean, and it kind of leads on to why you mentioned something about in one of your questions is
Hmm.
why is there going to be a UN sort of thing like for planets, and most definitely that's going to have to happen because as these
Hmm.
colonies get built up, I mean, they're going to be another America too. In fact, it might
Hmm.
not be America; it might be an American empire, as in
Right.
it's going to be run by kings and queens or something.
So crazy.
Um, it's like it's a different planet. You can do whatever you want there. As long as you send back the materials that those people that sent you over there
Mhm.
can sell back to the market or something, or produce stuff, so
Well,
that they can get back
here's a
their investment.
crazy idea. You know, they say people have other families in other states or other countries. Now we're gonna have men and women who have a family in New York, and then they're like, "Sorry, honey, I got another family in Pulutana. Sorry, she's got a nice rack. You have a nice butt. I got the full package." I don't know. I'm just like,
It's
could you imagine people
it can happen. I mean,
bi-coastal, bisexual, biplanetary?
like planetary, exactly. I mean, everyone's eyeing Mars, but
Not
before
me.
Mars, sorry.
Not me. I don't
Well,
want to go to Mars. I want to stay here,
yeah. I
right
mean,
here.
you'll be amazed at how many people actually signed up for a
Oh,
one-way trip to Mars. It's
I
about a
know.
million, I think. Yeah,
What? A million?
I think a million signed up. Like,
Good.
yeah,
Let's get
since,
rid of them. The Long Island Expressway is full. I need more roadway. All you people, go to Mars,
yeah.
please.
They and also to the moon. I think they're see before you can get to Mars.
Mhm,
Sorry, before you can fully colonize Mars, you've got to
mhm.
have a base so that you can launch the stuff more easily. So that would be the moon. So the moon is going to get colonized heavily first with heavy industry for developing catapult systems or rocket systems or something so that they can
Wow.
fire off goods to Mars, right?
And I'm getting nervous
So,
about driving 3 hours upstate. You're talking about going to the moon.
well, it's not just me. I mean, Elon is
Oh, I
like
know. I
already
know.
his brain's already there, like
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and, um, and basically all this stuff about like Virgin Galactic and what is it, the
Hmm.
space trips? That's
Hmm.
just toys for them. That's not really the end game. The end game is to be able to colonize Mars and to start
Wild.
mining there.
Wild.
So,
Well, we're at about 17 minutes. Now, there's a line in it says, enraged at the ineptness of the space police, she decides to hunt down the pirates that destroyed her ship and left her and her co pilot to die. So, this woman basically
yeah.
was uh the police didn't protect her and she was left to die by the police. So I'm asking you on a personal level, have you experienced similar things in your life? Have the police or the pharmaceutical industry or some authority just totally screwed you over and left you to die? Do you relate to this on any level?
I think I can relate to it as a Filipino citizen in terms of what happened with the pandemic.
Hmm.
Um, in the way that at the time when everything was closing down to protect the countries are closing up their borders to protect its citizens from the virus, we knew ahead of the states and ahead of everyone else in Europe, whatever, because our president is good friends with China, right?
Hmm.
We knew what was happening there. And even when China had stopped Filipinos from being able to go back to China to
Hmm.
work, we did not stop the immigration and visiting and all that sort of stuff coming here.
Hmm.
Around March, April, which is like at the height of the things that's like spiking,
Yeah.
we still had visitors like tourists coming in.
Interesting.
So
Why?
why?
Yeah.
Money. And
Okay.
so,
Okay.
I feel like with what I was describing in that scene where she was left to die, she was left to
Right.
die because they got the money and they take it
Gotcha.
off. They don't care what's going to happen to them.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's kind of like how I'm relating to that. I mean, there are other, of course, parts of my life that's like that kind of relates to that, but that is a key thing that sticks to that sticks to the foreground, like and that most people can relate to here.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
So I have one more question because we're 20, and Mark
yeah,
Torres isn't going to like it if we go over 20 minutes, but you and I can do that
sure.
privately. My last question would be, Vilma has a three-eyed best friend. One, two, three eyes. Do you believe in the third eye? Do you believe in that?
Yes, I believe in the third eye. However, in this particular case, the third eye might be what will be in reference to being able to see more spectrum of the light. Because I think at the moment humans can only detect up to 0.003% of of what the light spectrum is. So with
Interesting.
this particular creature, like it would have more access. It might be like another 0.5% than compared to us. So
Okay.
we can see more different things, energy, like auras, things like that
Mhm. Do
emanates
you
from
and the
creatures.
final question, this is a personal question. Do you see
Sure.
auras or energy? I had an interesting experience where I've had many people see lightning bolts and sparks come out of my head and around me. It's like electric things around me and colors. So I'm interested. Do you see any of that around people?
I had to really concentrate,
Mhm.
like before I do it, and then
Mhm.
it's like riding a bike. Once you know it, like, and once you practice it, it's like you get good at it. But then if you stop,
Right,
then
sure.
it'll take you a while to do it
Oh
again.
yeah. So
So
you can do it. You can see
yeah,
these
they're
things.
like the colors that come off you, like relate to certain types of
Mhm.
health, that situation that you're in. Like
Mhm.
I used to see a guy with like dark auras, and so,
Mhm.
and as it turned out, like especially it was dark around his back. He had a back problem,
Ooh.
major back problems in
I'm
his.
gonna have to send you pictures and videos of the people I keep around me to analyze. So on that
Oh,
note, we're gonna wrap up this part of the interview. I hope all the listeners enjoyed. Renato has a wealth of information. I love surrounding myself with intelligent people who are skilled. Hopefully, he'll
yes,
be back in the US with his newborn and wife. I'll get to meet next year, and hopefully, we'll do some very cool things in film and radio. And
cool.
hopefully, the world will be in a better place. I hope so. Thank
Yeah,
you for listening. And now back to more. It came from the radio. Now
thank
we
you.
can continue if you'd like, or we could break.
Thanks very much. That was cool. Yep. No,
You're
we
great.
covered. Ah, thank you. Like,
You
and
said so many interesting things, like factual things. So many people just put so much filler. Like you have so much in your head. Like, oh my
it's
God.
it's terrible. I had to control it.
No,
I
it's
was,
great.
yeah. So, but I like your questions. There was one that we
We
missed, but
skipped.
I told
We
it to
skipped two.
we skip to. Yeah. Um, betrayal. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like I had something on that, but then the one that was fairly interesting is their hope to clean up Earth. I
Yeah.
thought that
Yeah.
was fun.
That's
Now,
my thought like every day. So I think
I
about this all the time. I was like, ah, we always talk about this.
okay, so we're gonna cut this part out, but
Okay,
basically,
sure.
I don't believe there's a way that we can clean up Earth the
Wow.
way the corporations actually operate. It's
Yeah.
it's far too late. All this thing about climate change and all that, like a lot
Yeah.
of, I feel bad for the scientists that constantly come onto the to shows and say, we got to reduce by 1%. No one's listening to you guys.
Right. And not even that. It's just like the oceans, overfishing,
They don't.
trash collection, just flushing the toilet. My thing is
Yeah,
just by living and breathing and flushing the toilet and running the sink, we're polluting. So my mindset is if you're not actively going out of your way to contribute to this planet, you are just polluting every day. And I think you
yeah,
should be gone. that's
yeah.
that's my attitude.
One more thing about that
Hmm.
is your tax dollars. um, you should have more say on your tax dollars in terms of how the government is spending it to clean up sewage systems and
Hmm.
whatnot. And there should be a specific budget allocation in terms of destroying these polluting materials, either burning them or crushing them or whatever, like decomposing them, so that
Hmm.
they don't go back into the ocean. They become landfills or something, and then
Yeah.
maybe create turn them into building blocks. So, or,
Right.
for offices,
Yeah,
create
just
offices.
find ways to upcycle, recycle. Yeah.
Yeah, or send them off to Mars so that they
Yeah,
can be built into
right.
into something, right?
I
um
like that idea, yeah.
well, the moon is a perfect dumping. I shouldn't say that in on radio because they will hate that, but the moon is a perfect dumping stuff of rubbish. And then
Oh, sounds good to me.
yeah, I mean, that you want to clean up the planet,
Right.
send all the shit over to the moon and
And
pile them up there.
all the people who are problematic, they're just polluting way more than they
You
give,
can't.
you're gonna go there too.
they're gonna go to where the money is. Okay, so this is what's gonna happen. I think on Earth, Earth is gonna be seen as like a shithole. And
Wow.
it's like it's gonna be raped so badly that they're gonna go, oh, Mars is gonna have a beautiful like colony there, and like lush greens and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. Perfect. The lunar city is gonna be the same, so we'll move there. So
Wow.
all the people that have got to put up, like our children, children's children, all that,
Mm-hmm.
with all the rubbish and all that, we'll stay here, and you'll see the waters rise. You'll see the waters,
Mm-hmm.
some of the rivers dry up, and that's just gonna happen. I mean,
Wow.
it's inevitable.
But
If you
you
see the way,
obviously have enough faith in the planet because you had a child. See, I
uh,
don't have faith in the planet, so I wouldn't have a child. I wouldn't
um,
do that to someone.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
But we might have
let
we might have more time. Hopefully in your child's life, things are okay. I don't
me-
know.
I mean, what most people sort of have a child as well too, like as a sense of to pass on
Progeny,
your idea.
ancestry. Yeah.
Yeah, like so then they can probably hopefully educate others, and it's like, oh,
Right.
my father believed this, and this is what he said.
Yeah.
So hopefully that would be something like that. But in
Right.
terms of, sorry.
I said right, right.
Yeah,
Fingers
yeah.
crossed,
So
fingers
fingers
crossed.
crossed.
Yeah.
So, but eventually, it's like if you look at the way, the trajectory of how the corporations operate.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, how they all gather around saying, "Oh, let's fix the planet," blah blah blah. And then if you look at the stuff that they're producing, I mean, even just the electric cars, no one ever talks about how much energy electric cars actually produce.
Mhm.
Sorry, no, no, not sorry, no, how much rubbish, how much byproduct that's bad for the environment a
Mm.
battery operated car produce.
Hmm.
It's staggering.
Yeah,
you,
I don't
you,
know.
you'd think you'd wanna drive fuel cars better than
Really? See that?
battery cars.
I thought about you really you think it's healthier for the environment to do gas?
Dude, to make the batteries, the amount of toxic stuff that you have
Huh.
to put in there just so that it can hold power,
Wow.
is staggering. Okay, and the amount of stuff that you have to rape from the environment to
Mhm.
produce those battery
Oh
cars,
my
those
god.
solar panels.
Mhm.
I mean, you'd think there's got to be a better way to do this rather than create
Mm.
these solar panels. There's got to be another way that we can harness these things. Waves, the energy from the waves is
Mhm.
great. Okay,
Mhm.
because you only need to set up one big one of those, and it's a structure, and then you can get the power.
Wow.
But with solar panels, it's like, I mean, anyway, it's just one of those things. And they whine about fusion reactors and nuclear and all that. In
Mhm.
the end, it might be that that's the future, even though you
Hmm.
may have to ship the nuclear waste products in the moon to the moon or something.
Right, right.
Um, but that's the cheapest way to produce energy. And so
Wow.
then you may not have to generate these batteries so much
Mhm.
if you like that kind of thing. Or if you can shrink it enough that you can put one of those fission energy things in your car, then your battery can run for 100 years. I mean, your
Okay.
your car will run for 100 years, so you don't need to do anything.
Huh. See, your mind is there. I worked in hair salons for about a year, and I saw how much hair color and toxins just go into doing one hair treatment. I joke around. I say if all the women in Long Island stop coloring their hair, we can solve the New York City homeless problem. I mean, that's how, and the chemicals going down the drain, our water supply, and
Yeah.
whatever. I'll say this. I don't care. Hairstylists
Mhm.
won't like it, but just the garbage just on coloring hair,
Yeah.
straightening hair, just the nonsense that we're putting out there. What if we
Yes.
just stopped? What if we just said, you know what? This is out. Like, look
Yes.
at humans are doing. Look what they do to the environment just to color pieces of aminos on their head.
Yep. And you know what? If anyone has that power to just stop that, they'll
Hmm.
probably there will probably be
Killed.
assassinated. Yeah, within
Yeah,
like
like
24
me.
hours.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
like what
yeah,
I have a family friend I'm not gonna mention who was running for
yeah.
president,
Right.
and he was in charge of an environmental organization and was
Hmm.
cleaning stuff up, and uh nope, not so good when you're actually cleaning stuff up because you're going against the bottom dollar of other people.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Pharmaceuticals, like you got to watch